Adrian Gheorghe. You returned a few days ago from Asia, yesterday from Greece. Tomorrow you are heading to Austria and then to the United States of America.
In between I have to stop in Switzerland.
From your point of view, being a leading international expert, what is the energy rhetorics right now at a global level?
That's a very interesting question, and it's a very the answer is changing all the time because the world is changing minute by minute. So the problem of energy right now, it's of course it's the global vector which changes alliances, is changing dialogue and so on and so forth. And in the same time, it's advent of new technologies which really allows to change the games. Things which were operational for the last 25, 50 years, all of a sudden things are changing. And not only from the point of view of resources and the point of view of harvesting various types of energy from solar to natural gas and oil and whatever, and nuclear, but also from the point of view of the way how the energy is used, the impact of information technology, of digital age and so on, which changes efficiency. But in this case, because coming back to what you are asking me, we are dealing with energy and information. It's a substitution of energy and information. Information, I mean digital equipment, things what you are doing right now, taking pictures, which in the past it was, film and whatever. Now everything is digital. Now the same with coming with Internet of Things, where all things are connected, including a pump, a generator, your refrigerator, whatever, everything is connected. I mean, things which are using energy is connected through information. And that changes this relationship between energy and information. Before we were talking about energy and information. Now we are speaking what is called E plus I. Energy plus information is a new product. Really, we are now selling E plus I. We are not selling energy. And who does not understand that, so it's losing the opportunities, and that might be European and Asian and whoever.
I know that you have prepared a very interesting presentation for us.
I try to come with something which people call disruptive technology, and I think that's fascinating. And to see how these new disruptive technologies are pushing the market, are pushing geopolitics, and that is called, oil and shale gas, with technologies to harvest these resources, which it seems to be in a plentiful type of things, with the technology which popularly people are calling fracking technology. And of course, in Romania, this has a little bit of different connotation, but I'm not going to touch that issue necessarily, but to speak a little bit about advantages and disadvantages of these, which now became driving force, at least in the United States, in this view of achieving energy independence. The new administration is looking very much into these things, and for some political reasons, they try to I wouldn't say de-emphasize, but to keep on lower level these renewables, and that it is also related to jobs. In a few seconds, I'm going to talk a little bit what it means, what is the transformative technology of that, but also in the same time how we think about these issues associated with new concept of resilience, how these new technologies would achieve resilient energy policies, because I think you are interested on that, and how that comes with the governance things, which is important, regulatory bodies, how these new technologies require a specific regulatory things in order to make it the industry to be sustainable, because a lot of random aspects are coming in this shale technology and fracking.
And also, what is the impact on the geopolitics of?
I think that is very, very important an aspect. And one of the things on geopolitics, I said, for instance, now the new administration is trying to push classical energy technologies, but also this augmented new way of producing electricity, and that is now on the geopolitics to import less oil and gas from wherever countries, and then even America to become now an energy exporter. So that changes the equation of geopolitics.
Of course. And the market
of course, the market is going to be different. The market is going to adapt to the prices of competitiveness of these technologies, and then it is things which is already started to create convolutions in the energy market from, let's say, from Vladivostok to San Francisco, from Oslo down to Saudi Arabia, and that is changing the things, and this disruptive technology for erupting new geopolitics.
At this event in Bucharest, we are very honored that we can have you as a guest. So we are eager to find out what is new from the shale gas technology perspective.
Yeah, the reason I am talking about that, because also, we're doing research from the point of view of systems analysis, okay? Not necessarily about the technology in itself, but how this technology interacts with society, with environment, with politics, and so on. That's what we call right now approach to complex system governance. And that's what we are doing. So I'm not going to be in detail talking about technology, although that I think it's important to highlight in a few words. Shale gas, it's about natural gas. You find it it's trapped within shale formations. It's not you have a fountain of gas or a fountain of oil, but these kind of resources, they are embedded into rocks and things, so you have to extract it from there. So that creates a new way of technology moving only from vertical exploitation to vertical, horizontal, and fracking. But before going that and coming to your question, we can see in this graph that annual shale gas production and projected production in the United States, and that comes with what I mentioned before, so it's growing significantly. And in another graph here, it shows that the annual US natural gas production and projected production, and you see that on the black color here, you see how it is projected that these resources, shale gas, which once again are produced by using this fracking technology, are supposed to penetrate and invade the market, put it that way, changing the equation you mentioned. The question is shale gas a solution or not? It's debatable. We know we had in Romania a situation that shale gas exploitation created some kind of aversion from the population, because they are, from one side, positive aspects, from one side, negative aspects. So it's no free lunch, how people usually say. It's a new way of approaching that. This technology is not new. This technology has been developed since the 30s. But to be able to be acceptable in the engineering economic environment, so to speak, it took years. It was easier to exploit oil and gas from classical approaches, and you see here that classical vertical drilling. In the new technologies, you have vertical drilling, horizontal drilling, and fracking. And there are different ways of fracking types, using water, using foam, using chemical substances, and here we come. You know, when you have to use a combination of these substances which really breaks the rock, and in order to be able to extract the gas or oil, so that disrupt the very structure of the geology, and that has impacts, unknown impacts, because in the beginning it was easy to say, doesn't matter, is no problem, but we don't know. It's a lot of ambiguity. You know, ambiguity is coming, is not uncertainty. Uncertainty is related to something you know with some probability. Ambiguity, you don't have enough knowledge what could happen. And I think that's important in the decision-making process and in the vocabulary, what we discuss, to make it clear, what are we talking about, uncertainty or ambiguity? How much work we have to do? And this fracking, it brings a lot of ambiguity because you don't know the geology very well, how things impact locally, and now in the United States, people are talking about, you know, regionally, even at the continental level. Ohio State, for instance, now it's called the capital of the earthquakes of the world, because they never had earthquakes for hundreds of years. Now, because a lot of this technology, fracking, they have hundreds of earthquakes per week. And then they might induce the big San Andreas which earthquake in California, which is thousands of kilometers away, but that goes with unknown unknowns. And when it comes to earthquakes, the geologists say an earthquake or earthquakes, they don't kill people. The buildings kill people. So that you see how the things are moving, and see how we talk about oil and gas and politics and whatever, with an impact on potential human-induced natural disasters, with consequences on people's life, so to speak. So, yeah. But the population they have a different approach. We call it something in this systems thinking, we call it, you know, NIMBY concept. Do you know about NIMBY concept? It's not in my backyard. Everybody would like to have cold beer, hot water, nice life, but not in my backyard. Other people say it's a banana principle. But what is banana principle? Build anything near anyone, never again. Really? So you don't want, people want the butter and the money for the butter. Politicians say Nimtov. Very interesting, very useful, but not in my terms of office. So you see the conflicts which the new technology bring at the political level, societal level, and so on, so that that is really a science and art, whatever engineering, political, and whatever you have, in order to push it. But economics matters. And you can see here in these slides a number of shale gas wells in the United States. After the year 2006 or 2008, you see exponentially increase this number of wells. So for fracking, you know, and economics, technology, it's moving quite a lot. You know, the new risks, new vulnerabilities. All of them in order to go to resilient technology. Resilient not from the point of view of technology in itself, but from the point of view interaction with the society. As I mentioned a few seconds ago, the concept, you know, complex system governance, because we are talking here about system of system, technological system, political system, economical system, environmental system. They might exist independently. But when you go at the meta level, when you put things together, you have realities in the street.
Energy field, they are interconnected.
Exactly. Even if we speak in United States, if we speak in Europe, if we speak wherever we speak, so this kind of approach to system of systems, so to speak, is becoming extremely relevant. I have colleagues working Europe at the high level, European things related to energy security. And we are talking about new ways to analyze, to see how we can make decisions. We are using now what is called serious gaming. You create scenarios, you play things, modeling and simulation. You are using new technologies like called agent-based modeling.
New analytical
tools, right. And this together with citizen conferences or political environment, they try to, I would say, I wanted to say the word harmonize, but some people are afraid of this word harmonize. They try to join different viewpoints in order to find a solution. We think about, as I said, about the NIMBY, banana, NIMTOF, but at the end of the day, we want to have a car, we have to have whatever, hot
access
shower, for instance, access to services. And the services today, and in the past, you cannot have without energy. Other services today, mainly you cannot have about information. And then energy and information creates what I told you, E plus I. So people, they don't know that they deal with E plus I, but this is a digital age, goes into that direction, and with positive and negative aspects.
This is why it's so important, first of all, to communicate, to exchange opinions and ideas, because we definitely live in a totally new paradigm, where the United States of America are becoming exporters of energy. This is changing the market, this is changing the Russian position, the situation in the Middle East.
It's absolutely correct. And then change the dimension of narrative, as you mentioned before. The story is different. The story is changing. The story in the sense that what you are saying here, narrative and things, it's a story, put it that way, which different people take this story in different way. If you have to translate the story into analytical models, mathematical models, you have to find the appropriate instruments. If you are a diplomat, you want to change the story in your favor, you have your diplomatic language. If you are a politician, so everybody has his tools, so to speak, in order to adapt to the stories. In the end, it's technology, it's willingness to change, it's willingness to accept whatever the story is all about, and might be the story could change slowly. And if I come back to this shale gas and things, which United States is pushing, Europeans are also not far from, because it's a competition here. Sooner or later, somebody developing technology will have to exploit this, because it seems to be at least as many reserves on shale and oil gas as they are on classical things. At some point in time, if we don't invent something totally extraordinary, which will not be a need for oil and gas, which I doubt, but anyway, at least for a period of time. But there are risks. Risks are related to health. As I mentioned to you, you realize that the numbers, how many chemicals, how many substances are displaced into the environment, and not easy to be controlled, because you push millions of chemicals, tons of chemicals into underground, 5, 6, 7 kilometers under. And when you have water tables for drinking and so on, and you realize how people, instead of having drinking waters, they have flammable gas to the tap. Nature destruction and unknowns. And I think these unknowns, it's important to analyze, and that is what we call this ambiguity, because from the scientific point of view, we don't know everything yet, because we did not go until now so deep with these technologies, Shale gas has unknown risks, since the technology is almost new, and we have lack of knowledge about deep underground systems behavior, so to speak. Of course, we try to see how we manage that. Tools to manage this are called risk assessment tools. One of these, this what is called a risk matrix, where you have the red color when any technology or any scenarios, the probability is high to happen with impact, negative impact. So nobody would like to be on that. And then you have this what is called black swan, things unknown, which it's already known here. And we make a division between known unknowns and unknown unknowns, so to speak. And that is, it's becoming now very way of talking even, Donald Rumsfeld used to be Secretary of Defense United States. He even wrote a book on that, by the way. It's a very interesting book. So he said that they are known knowns. There are things we know. We also know that they are known unknowns. That is to say, we know, then are some things we don't know. But there are also unknown unknowns.
Lots of them.
Right. The ones we don't know, you see? So that you see how we complicate and the way we call these complex systems in a way. From known unknown to unknown unknowns, so you can see impacts on health, impacts on environment, and involving low Richter scale earthquakes with consequences on people, because I mentioned to you earthquakes, they don't kill people, buildings are killed people. And we build the buildings at some time when we did not have these technologies. And usually buildings, they stay hundreds of years, or decades. But with all these new technologies, we have buildings which are not supportive to the new unknowns. So that is really things which we have to deal with. One thing I think is important to categorize things and to make it more clear from, I wouldn't say pedagogical, but at least to have an accepted discussion. When we speak about assets, we categorize the assets in tangible assets and intangible assets. Like tangible is national pipelines, energy companies, technological equipment. We associate to them indicators like national economy, carbon emission, domestic resources. On the other side, we have what is called intangibles. And this classification is important to deal because I have seen quite a lot on our discussion, people, they make a revelation, intangibles, let's call them intangibles because, like for instance, beauty of nature, technology, political power, and that's exactly what you are interested right now, political power, call it Ukraine, call it I don't know what, that is behind this political power. Here you can see the case of Ukraine, okay? While it's difficult to measure, but we still look for some intangibles indicators, like energy security, sustainability, energy resiliency. What is it? But we constructed new concepts, and in this effort to operate with them, we associate sub-indicators, could be tangible and intangible, but at the confluence of tangibles and intangibles is the real life. So then how we deal with this mixture of tangibles and intangibles in order to be able to be sustainable, whatever that sustainability concept in that society is still accepted. We had this United Nations sustainability acceptance for 17 specific indicators, including climate change and so on. Now, some parts of the world, they decided that maybe sustainability is not the best word to be used. Let's have another word. I don't know, we don't have yet one. But you see how flexible things are for the sake of politics, for instance. I think it will be very important to promote to our audience, people, stakeholders, politicians, to operate with this concept. It's not only with with a simple concept, which party A versus party B, because in the end, each of them, they have to rely on indicators, agreed indicators or something on which they can make a reasonable decision or a decision policy. The policy formation level, because we came to this, from risk view point to resilience. Okay, so people still speak about risk, but society evolved and we realize risk is a construct. It's an artificial construct. Vulnerability is about the state of the system. As soon as we are dealing with this fracking, we are vulnerable because we are dealing with a reality. It's a state of environment where you are dealing with that. Of course, risk is probability and consequences. You are using expert elicitation in order to put figures on one or the other. But then people evolve now in concepts like fragility, resilience, so that you see that it's a dynamic process which this system, complex system governance and system of system instruments are now designed in order to support the decision-making process based on new concept or new idea. It's, I wouldn't say necessarily based, but it's a decision-making informed on risk figures, on resilience. Infranomics is a terminology invented by my group, which goes on infrastructure and nomos from Greece, from Greek. Infrastructure, we speak about that, and nomos is rules. How these rules put together created infranomics, things which involve not only technical and economic, but also geopolitics. Infranomics involves geopolitics. And we come back exactly to your questions. The instrument to deal with this complexity of issues, infranomics, it's an instrument to deal with that. We published recently a book on infranomics, even that, and we presented the concept to experts of Department of Homeland Security. We presented to European Commission. So, like any new concept, it needs some absorption time, osmosis, because systems are they have a high degree of viscosity. As a conclusion to this, infranomics, and to see why it's difficult, because you said people are used to that. What happened in the meantime? If we still keep the concept of risk, which is probability and consequences, probabilities of these events and so on are in the range, let's put it that way, out of blue, 10 to the minus 9. The consequences are at least in millions, dollars, euro, whatever. So 6 plus 9, they are 15 orders of magnitude, how engineers like to say. 15 orders of magnitude. Engineers, they were not trained to develop system within this. Economists say, get out, I don't give you money for it. What is that? Yeah. It's irrational. Politicians, me, to 16 order, 15 order, until things happened. And then politicians said, I told you. Economists said, how much money you need? And who is to blame? Engineers. Because they don't find solution in seconds or in days or even in decades. So you see, ambiguity, things you have to do research to come with technology. That's what we have entrepreneurs and people who risk their own money, risk their own personal wealth, because they believe that solution at some point in time would be rewarded, so to speak. And I think that it's important to understand that even at European level, even Russians, I think Russia for sometimes did not really go very enthusiastically about this fracking technology, put it in a popular way. But realizing that world resources, if you remap the oil and gas oil resources, including these things which said, forget it, because we cannot exploit them economically. Now we exploit it. So even Russia is, now OPEC, for instance, which affected Russia from that point of view. They all of a sudden decided to change the price of oil, and price of gas is linked to the price of oil. So if they decided that, they went very low because they wanted to make competition to these American technologies. To some extent, the industry of fracking survived, but not entirely, because a lot of things were closed. Because to be, at least at some point in time, calculation was to be sustainable in a way of economic, in the economic meaning, to this fracking technology, you need the oil price to be minimum $60 per barrel. But you see how your question is well taken. Geopolitics to technology versus competition, and things go to the very old Latin saying. It says, homo homini lupus, which stands for eat if you don't want to be eaten. So that is in fact the fight right now, and the fight goes in different shapes and formats, and homo homini lupus. Be aware of that.
Thank you so much, Professor Adrian Gheorghe. It was a pleasure to listen to these new evolutions and new technologies coming from the United States of America. I think it's a very important debate, and we should all take advantage of your presence in Romania, first of all. As we have discussed just before our interview, you mentioned that we are in the paradigm of the 70s, when everybody, producers, consumers, and also transit states, are trying to ensure their own energy security. And also you have mentioned the aspect of dependency.
It was the things with President Bush sometimes. He said that America is addicted to oil, because it was political. Then I came with a sentence, Europe is addicted to gas, and look, Russia and those things like that. And then President Obama said, change. So I said, the whole world is addicted to change, whatever it is. So we're addicted to something at some point in time. And in fact, today, we are addicted to oil and gas and change, geopolitics. We are addicted to a better life.
So let's remind that to everybody that we are addicted to change, and we have to be prepared.